It looks like this couple is having a cozy evening at home. The husband is trying to write at the table, the wife is sitting close by reading a book. Suddenly, they are being interrupted by a knock on the front door. They are not expecting anyone, and we can already see a look of concern on the wife's face. Ignoring her husband's words to wait upstairs, she comes down to see who's at the door.
Well, they told me I could find a room here.
Turns out that the stranger standing at their doorstep is a doctor who has heard from someone that they have a boarding house. Javier Bardem's character laughs at this, and Jennifer Lawrence's character frowns in disbelief, as if she's heard something strange. She's silent in this shot, but it looks like her expression says, "How could someone have thought that?" I think that the fact that people are saying that this couple offers rooms in their house is already very significant. Could it be that the both of them and their house send off a certain vibe, that their doors are open for everyone? It's like when a person is very soft and weak, insecure and unable to say no and protect his boundaries, other people somehow sense this and therefore try to attack him. Somehow people can smell this off of each other. It's probably some animal instinct.
Sit for a second. Can we get you anything to drink?
That's fine.
The husband is very excited by this sudden interruption, and that's why he offers him a drink, but the man refuses. We can see reluctance on her face. She wishes that the stranger would leave them alone. She hopes the husband sends him away. She's expecting, hoping, but says nothing. Later, she will have to pay for the silence, because everything comes at a cost. Her inability to set up her boundaries creates problems in her life that could have easily been avoided. But the husband doesn't send the man away, and she feels the need to offer this stranger a cup of tea, just to be polite, ignoring her true feelings.
Some tea?
No. I don't.
We can hear it in her voice that she's not being honest, that she does it against her will. She still hopes that the stranger would refuse the offer and leave. Look at this man's face. He's trying to read her signals, carefully studying her face, trying to understand what her expression means. And he reads everything correctly. That's why he refuses, and keeps on refusing.
I don't want to be a bother. But you must.
If only it wasn't for the husband, who seems to be so desperate for this stranger's company. The stranger in this shot is questioning her boundaries. This is proof that other people aren't really mean to her, that it is her who lets people intrude, lets them invade her private space, her home, her life, her mind. The man was hesitant. He was studying and analyzing first before accepting this offer to have tea at their house. However, the husband insists that he stays. Look at Javier Bardem's character's face. It's as if he's saying to the man, "Oh, don't you worry about her. She has no boundaries. How she feels doesn't matter, so we can do whatever we want." The husband in this film is portrayed in a very immature way. He's like a child almost. He's completely oblivious to his wife's feelings. But in this video, I want to focus on her and how she's also partly responsible for the way her husband behaves, because she's been teaching him how to behave around her all these years they've been together.
I'll go make some.
Thank you.
Disappointment appears on her face. She wishes her husband didn't urge the man to stay. Here in this shot, she's coming to terms with the fact that she will have to bear his presence, that it's inevitable, that life isn't fair, that the husband doesn't understand her, doesn't read her signals, doesn't know her, that he can't read her mind. This is a very familiar emotion for her, accepting the unwanted circumstances. But it doesn't have to be this way forever. She needs to speak out, to make her needs and wants vocal, to express her true desires and intentions, to communicate with her husband and not expect him to read her mind. With time, he will learn and understand how she feels. But how is he supposed to know what she feels inside if she never spoke out before? Of course, we can also assume that he knows how she feels and knows that she simply can't speak out, and then he uses this trait of hers to take advantage of her and do whatever he wants to do. But again, the main focus is the main character, brilliantly portrayed by Jennifer Lawrence, and we're not going to put the blame on other characters. We're not going to pity her. We're going to look at her life and learn how to protect our boundaries and not play victim and then suffer the consequences. We are learning here using this film. We're doing this for the future to make our lives better and more simple. And we're using this film and the experience of the main character as a learning tool. She makes tea reluctantly, as if it's a very difficult chore, at the same time overhearing bits of their conversation. The look of disapproval is printed on her face. She doesn't like what's going on, but still keeps playing her part in it.
You alright?
Here we see her in pain. She's already pain for her inability to say no. Pain with pain. Pain with her health. Whenever she lets others invade her private space, she feels terrible. Everything comes at a cost. When we can't say no, we step over our own needs. When we say yes just to please others, we agree to harm ourselves. Here in this film, we see instant circumstances. She couldn't say no when she wanted to. A minute later, bam, she crouches with pain. In life, we usually need to wait for the consequences to appear. Therefore, it's more difficult to see the correlation between our actions and the consequences of our actions. It's important to understand that all pent-up emotions will eventually find their way out. They will be released in one way or another. You know what happened when the main character has accumulated too much pent-up emotions?
No! It's time to get the fuck out of my house!
I think that psychosomatic diseases can serve as a great example to showcase this sequence of events, suppressing emotions and then having to deal with how they are released. Let's take eczema, for example. Since I'm a lifelong sufferer of this disease, I thought I would tell you how it played out in my life in a similar way. My eczema appears when I bottle up my emotions and don't deal with them. So in a way, my skin does that difficult job for me, and all the negative stuff comes out in a form of irritation on my skin. Over the years, I've noticed that a flare-up always comes a few days after an emotional event in my life, usually when I couldn't speak up, say no, and protect my boundaries. When I feel calm again and the traumatic situation is behind me, that's when the rash would appear on my skin. For many years, I blamed the people who attacked me, who invaded my privacy. But in reality, I let them be this way towards me. I was also to blame because I played the victim so well that it was too difficult for the other person to resist the temptation of becoming the predator. I should have found strength in me to stand up against their disrespectful attitude and/or minimize our communication. But I was weak, and I admit that. It's important to distinguish between kindness and weakness, because they are not the same thing. It takes two to tango. Had I been stronger, those people wouldn't have attacked me. I'm actually very grateful for my eczema because when I figured out that correlation, I was able to see where I go wrong in my life.
You alright?
Fine.
I'm fine, she says, although she's in terrible pain, which forces her to crouch down. Hiding her true feelings is so habitual for her that these words, "I'm fine," just automatically come from her mouth. There's nothing wrong with showing your weakness sometimes. Asking for help is normal when you really need this help. However, it seems that to her, showing her weakness will destroy her image of herself that she created in her mind of a perfect, kind woman. But this image is not realistic, not sustainable. She can't keep this up forever. Something has to give. Eventually, she will have to either destroy her perfect image or she will have to destroy her health. After having tea, the man gets up to leave because he senses that she doesn't feel comfortable in his presence. Again, the husband persists with his hospitality and offers him to spend the night.
Please, we'd enjoy the company, right?
Now they are both looking at her, waiting for her reply. She feels the weight of their expectations, which brings her discomfort, and gives in and says yes.
Yes, of course.
It's almost physically painful for her to utter these words, but she makes herself do it.
Sure. Positive.
Yes, of course.
Why are you doing this to me? Her eyes seem to be saying to her husband. But why is he to blame? They are asking her, and she has the right to say yes or no. But people pleasers always feel the pressure from other people, and they are not strong enough to decline. But after they accept whatever they are being offered, that's when they will have to be even stronger, because the weight of circumstances is going to be very heavy. They have to bear the consequences that they have created themselves by not being strong enough to speak their mind. The look on her face speaks louder than words. She blames her husband. But if we blame the other person, it means that we put all the weight of responsibility on them, which makes them more important than us, and makes us someone who has no responsibility, which means that we can't do anything to change our lives, that we don't have any say in anything. Is this really how we want to live our lives? The stranger gives her one last chance to back out, but the husband answers for her immediately and not even looking at his wife.
Are you sure? Positive.
He didn't even think that his wife would be against it, because she never ever protested before, and that's how he knows she won't protest. Communication is something they should work on as a couple.
He's a stranger. We're just gonna let him sleep in our house.
She could have said no before. She had so many opportunities. Too late now. Too late to discuss that because you have already let him in. She was compliant before, but now she's scolding her husband for letting the stranger into their home. This is irrational. You can't please a stranger and be all nice and kind in his eyes and refuse him at the same time. If you want the luxury of being yourself and living your life the way you want to, then you have to be okay with the fact that some people won't like that, and that's okay, because you can't please everyone.
You want me to ask him to leave?
Do you want me to ask him to leave? He says. Look at his expression. Are you really so mean that you would throw the poor man outside? That's what he's actually saying to her. He knows what buttons to press really well, because she's always been this way, silent, compliant. He's used to it. That's why when he decided to invite the man, he didn't even think the wife would not be okay with it. But let's not forget that she also played a part in making him this way. By being silent and passive, by not vocalizing her needs, by putting all the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, she prepared the ground for this to happen. Again, I'm focusing on her responsibility in this. If we talk about him taking advantage of her weakness, it will be a completely different analysis. Also, when he's saying, do you want me to ask him to leave? He's testing her, whether or not she will bear the weight of responsibility for making this decision, and just like he thought, she backed out. Of course not. Of course he can stay, because she's a good person. For some reason, keeping this image of being a kind person is more precious to her than doing what she wants. But she's wrong. Her weakness is not the same as kindness. That's why she doesn't feel any better when she does the right thing, as she thinks.
We don't smoke.
That's smart.
Notice how earlier he could read her signals correctly, and now he's being less and less respectful. The more she allows, the less respect the guest shows. Of course, he understood that she meant that he shouldn't be smoking inside the house. But he knows by now that her boundaries are very flexible, so why bother? The way she behaved earlier gave him an idea how to behave around her. That's how he got the permission to act this way. And throughout the film, we will see that it would only get worse and worse. So she had to explain herself.
In the house, I mean.
Now she has to put more effort into protecting her boundaries because earlier she was too meek.
Sorry.
And he says okay and throws the cigarette outside, but it's still their property, which means that he throws garbage wherever he wants. They don't pay attention to it, as if it's enough that he put the cigarette out. And notice how the husband doesn't mind that the stranger is smoking in his home and doesn't say anything to support his wife in this. Not verbally, not on the physical level. This shows how different they are, how distant they are.
Is everything all right? It is.
Give him some privacy.
Give him some privacy. These are reasonable words. This is actually very rude of her. She let him stay. So why walk in on him like this? Let the husband deal with it. It's rude to enter the room you gave for your house guest. And if you're not comfortable giving him the room, then you shouldn't have let him stay in the house in the first place. Here, by opening the bathroom door, she's doing the same thing as the guest did to her, disrupting his privacy. She notices that he's been smoking a lot inside the house, despite promising her he wouldn't. Without much hesitation, she throws away the lighter off the table, hoping he would think that he'd lost it somewhere, as if it would make him stop smoking. Why does she do it? It's also stepping over this person's boundaries. Even though it's her house, and yes, he shouldn't be smoking inside, but it's still his possession that she threw away. She feels justified in doing so, since he didn't abide her rules. So maybe unconsciously, she creates these circumstances where people overstep her boundaries so that later she can do mean things to them and feel like she has the right to do them. It's an idea. It could be true since she's trying to be so perfect and so nice and so polite. She's such a people pleaser and there's no balance in her life. No one is perfect and there's no such thing as perfection. Maybe she's denying any negative emotion that appears inside and suppresses it every time, and even doesn't allow herself to think bad thoughts. And that's why she creates problems for herself in order to do something bad and feel like in this case no one can judge her because people treated her so badly, right? Somehow it's easier for her to just throw away the lighter when no one is watching than say what needs to be said to people's faces, to bear the confrontation, the tension. She avoids taking responsibility and fears being the one who makes decisions, who has equal rights as her husband. And that's why she lets the husband make decisions. Responsibility is like a burden for her. The fact that people don't respect her boundaries is hurting her. She feels worse and worse, and she needs to find a substitute, to do something to feel better. Some people reach for alcohol, drugs, etc. It relieves the pain, but only temporarily. If we continue with the eczema comparison, if you start using hormonal ointments, your skin will eventually heal. But the irritation can appear again, and you will have to apply the ointment again and become dependent on it. And if you use it frequently, it will start helping you less and less, and you will have to find a stronger remedy. Besides, hormonal ointments are very tricky because they have side effects and create a variety of health problems for you in the future.
Oh, sorry. Just need a light. Don't worry about it. I'll take it outside.
You can see how disrespect progresses. Now the stranger not only feels at home here, he doesn't even bother to act like he respects. He just says the words as if he remembers her rules, but with his actions, he shows no respect. When I first watched this film, I thought, oh my god, this is me. Jennifer Lawrence's character is literally me, and I sympathized with her and really actually thought how cruel these intruders are to her and how oblivious her husband is to her feelings. So I was 100% on her side, but after giving this another watch, I started thinking that everything was actually in her hands, and she was the one who let the situation get so bad. So what can we learn from the main character's experience? Protecting your boundaries is very important. If you feel like saying no, you must say no. People can't read your mind, even your loved ones, so speak your mind. Suppressed emotions will eventually find their ugly way out. Perfection is a myth, so accept the fact that you have flaws. Being a people pleaser won't get you far, because there's always going to be someone who won't like you. I hope you found some valuable lessons in this video, and if you did, let me know what exactly was useful for you personally. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.